Here on the coast of southern Spain, on the same sandy desert that carried Lawrence of Arabia and General Patton to celluloid fame, producer Dino De Laurentiis, a name synonymous with film epics, has set his sights on a new challenge, bringing a popular myth to life on the screen, Conan the Barbarian.
Conan is one of the most tough movies I did in my life. You know, I did more than 600 movies, any kind of a movie, The Bible, War and Peace, artistic movie, Ragtime, King Kong. But Conan really was tough.
The difficulties involved recreating the Conan legend, already well established with millions of loyal comic book fans. Until De Laurentiis took hold of the project, movie makers had avoided this larger-than-life hero.
What is Conan? It's an escape movie, it's a fantasy movie, it's an adventure movie. This is exactly what the audience want to see today, especially if you do this movie with high quality.
To write and direct the film, De Laurentiis turned to a movie maker accustomed to large-scale, big-budget filmmaking, John Milius, best known for his epic screenplay, Apocalypse Now.
You must make a movie that you particularly want to see and that you feel communicates an idea or whatever it is that you wanted to start out doing.
Faced with the task of casting, Milius had but one choice for the lead role of Conan, 13-time world bodybuilding champion Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold is ideally physically suited for Conan, and once I got to know Arnold, I found that he was ideally mentally suited for it, too.
Ambitious in both size and scope as well as budget, Conan is a $23 million risk, but one that Dino De Laurentiis feels well worth taking.
I stay with my smell, with my feeling, with my nose. Sometimes you have intuition.
This is the flexible snake that Thulsa Doom uses to kill Valeria with. We see him take the real snake. As he then hits a button, it becomes a solid, stiff arrow, and then he fires that from his bow, hitting Valeria. You actually see James Earl Jones standing there, quite normally. And you see Conan come in, and as he strikes the first blow in the V of his neck here, that's when we get that shock look. We also have all the main artist swords with pistons inside them. When they actually strike, they will press a button, and blood is emitted from the edge of here. It's made from coffee, food colouring, and syrups, and stuff like that. We came across one slight problem in Segovia when we were in the really minus degrees. Instead of putting a water base to break it down, I was actually putting vodka with it to stop it from freezing. The artists were great, they loved it, put them in their mouth and they were spraying it. The trouble is they were drinking more of it than anything else. Now what this rig's for is when Conan is taken off the Tree of Woe, they tie him down on these 3 stakes on the sand, and the spirits are here are very, very strong. All of a sudden the body starts to pitch and weave and starts to levitate, and hence that's what that hydraulic rig's for. And we can see underneath him and there's no wires. One thing that I was really more interested in anything of doing this picture was the big snake. That's always, that was the thing that was really the challenge to me on this picture.
Special effects. We've come to take them for granted in this age of the movie spectacular, but for the special effects designers like Nick Alder, who won an Academy Award for Alien, every effect is a new challenge.
Seek. This is the flexible snake that Thulsa Doom uses to kill Valeria with. We see him take the real snake up. It's transferred to a flexible snake, and what he does, he then hits a button and it becomes a solid, stiff arrow. And then he fires that from his bow, hitting Valeria.
The art of illusion, carefully planned and executed by Alder and his international team of experts.
You actually see James Earl Jones standing there, quite normally. And you see Conan come in, and as he strikes the first blow in the V of his neck here, that's when we get that shock look. We also have all the main artist swords with pistons inside them. When they actually strike, they can press a button, and blood is emitted from the edge of here. It's made from coffee, food colouring, and syrups, and stuff like that. We came across one slight problem in Segovia when we were in the really minus degrees. Instead of putting a water base to break it down, I was actually putting vodka with it to stop it from freezing. The artists were great, they loved it, put them in their mouth and they were spraying it. The trouble is they were drinking more of it than anything else. Now what this rig's for is when Conan is taken off the Tree of Woe, they tie him down on these 3 stakes on the sand, and the spirits are here are very, very strong. All of a sudden the body starts to pitch and weave and starts to levitate, and hence that's what that hydraulic rig's for, and we can see underneath him and there's no wires. One thing that I was really more interested in anything of doing this picture was the big snake. That's always, that was the thing that was really the challenge to me on this picture.
And the cost of all this movie magic? Over $2 million, the going rate for bringing a myth to life. Like Dorothy's trip to the Wizard of Oz, the Odyssey of Sandahl Bergman from Kansas to Almeria, Spain, was no less spectacular. She has been cast as Valeria, Queen of Thieves in Conan the Barbarian. I asked Sandahl what her character Valeria was like.
Her character, she's a Queen of Thieves. She's a master of a leader of her own tribe, I'll say. Mm-hmm. I love her, and I fell in love with her, and there's a lot of Sandahl in her because she's a very strong woman, you know, physically and also of the mind. She's just a strong woman all the way around.
Bergman's first big role came when she landed a part in Bob Fosse's All That Jazz. When director John Milius saw her performance, he realized she was perfect for the role in Conan.
What type of special training did you have to go through to prepare for this role?
I studied 6 months, and I learned kendo. Mm-hmm. And I learned a couple of different varieties of broadswording, they call it, and the drawing of the sword. But kendo, we studied this about 3 days a week, mm-hmm. about 2.5 to 3 hours. And then we went to Spain and were there a month before we actually started photography. And we took Yamazaki, our instructor, and we worked every day. Mm-hmm. And it had to become very second nature, you know, because that's in essence what the movie. These people, that was their form of defense. Right. Uh-huh. So you really had to know what you're doing, and me being a woman, I really had to know what I was doing. So we worked very hard on that.
If you had this picture to do over again, would there be anything that you would change about your character?
I wouldn't die. I die in this movie, and shoot.
But you have a surprise, though.
Yes, we do have, there is a surprise, but no, you know, there's nothing I would change. Dino, I went on such an adventure that's unexplainable. You know, all of us have certain stories we can tell about our lives that's happened, but mm-hmm. I totally left America and went to a new land and went on a new adventure. And the biggest thing that I got from it was I'd never been away from America, and it made me come back and feel so good about being an American citizen and living in this country. Mm-hmm.
The man you see here in Almeria, Spain may seem familiar, yet not familiar at all. He is at once Arnold Schwarzenegger and Conan the Barbarian wrapped into one. I recently asked Arnold why he wanted to do this film.
I always wanted to do adventure movies and heroic movies, and this movie had, you know, the story had so much fantasy and all those things in it that I was happy that you know, to then end up playing the character. It was just wonderful and very adventurous, and going to Spain with John Milius and being directed by him, and so it was a great experience.
Schwarzenegger has had other great experiences. By 1975, he had won the World Championship in bodybuilding an unprecedented 13 times when he decided to retire and switch careers. But as he soon found out, making motion pictures is not all fun and games.
whenever you have a physical movie like that, where there's stunts every day to be done, and where there's danger, of course, every day, whenever you swing swords in front of people's bodies, I mean, you know, you run into problems where you get cut eventually, or when you deal with vultures that they really attack you, or camels really start biting you. Or the first hour of the shooting this movie, I was attacked by those wolf-like dogs that jumped up that rock and pulled me down, and I fell on my back 15 feet down from a rock. So things like that happen all the time. But still, it was a fun movie to make, although we got into a lot of injuries because of the adventure. Just it's something, and you know always when you do the movie that it's going to be a great movie for everybody to see because of the fantasy, and it's very heroic, kind of, you know.
What experience did you take from this movie that you can carry into your next film?
Well, I think that the experiences that I have gotten from bodybuilding is, you know, that you have to have discipline, and you have to have really a lot of willpower and all those things in order to work hard for the project. And so I carry this from bodybuilding over to acting. And I think I also learned that on a set in Spain, that you have to have really certain inner strength to fight through all those obstacles, and you have to have the determination to go and train for whatever you have to train for, if it is the acting or the voice training or the sword training. And I think I will be able to carry all those kind of things that I learned in Spain over to the next movie.
I saw the film last night at a screening.
And you liked it, right? Right?
Right,
okay,
right.
Good.
Yes,
well, turn to the camera and tell the people what you thought of the movie now.
Okay, I really enjoyed the movie Conan the Barbarian, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Please go see it.
Good. You did well.
Thank you. The movie opens with a quote. It says, "That which does not kill you makes you stronger." That's pretty logical, and the quote sets the mood for the entire film. I will admit up front that Conan the Barbarian is at times corny, but if you accept this film for what it's worth, and is, it's pretty enjoyable and a lot of fun. There are almost two cult followings developing from the picture. One is from the comic book character Conan. He's got a lot of fans out there. And the other cult following is for the star, Arnold Schwarzenegger. This picture is going to make money, and why not? The general public usually enjoys seeing a mythical hero fighting the bad guys and winning at it. In this movie, it starts out with the young boy Conan seeing his mother and father murdered by the villainous villain Thulsa Doom. He's portrayed by James Earl Jones. Doom is into snakes. He'd be good to have around the house. He can turn little garden snakes into arrows. Doom is deadly, though. He's a dastardly, devilish, deceitful man. He's a
sorcerer who can summon demons.
Yeah, that too. He can command people to do the strangest things.
There, on the rocks, that beautiful girl. Come to me, my child.
Hey, and I thought E.F. Hutton had power. Anyway, he captures Conan and puts him on a thing called the Wheel of Pain. And pushing that instrument around and around day after day can do a lot for your bod. Conan's captors make a pit fighter out of him. Eventually, though, he is set free by his owner, and while journeying near and far, he meets a fellow drifter, played by Jerry Lopez, and a lovely lady, Valeria, Queen of Thieves, played by Sandahl Bergman. One night, they all meet for the first time.
You're not a guard.
Neither are you.
Thieves, like yourself, come to climb the tower.
You don't even have a rope. Two fools who laugh at death. Do you know what horrors lie beyond that wall?
No.
Then you go first.
I'm not going. After the three share some dangerous moments and fun times, they sort of break up. Conan is recaptured, and it's here he faces his past. He plans on seeking revenge on Thulsa Doom for the death of his parents. A big confrontation results between the two, one we can see coming a long way off. There's a lot of blood and gore in the film, The fighting sequences are well staged. There's a lot of action. The set designs by Ron Cobb are effective. The script is at times very funny, and as I mentioned earlier, corny. John Milius' direction is good as he sets the mood and pace, although the film is a little slow at times and is a bit too long. But that's minor. All the performances are good, including Schwarzenegger. He seemed very confident in the role of Conan, a real man and not someone with supernatural powers. Even with its small problems, Conan the Barbarian is a good film that I think is going to be a hit. I'm Dino Lawley. If you like horror films, the kind that really shock you, then you'll probably like Parasite. The movie should be popular with that kind of an audience. What's funny is that when I first heard about this picture called Parasite, I made a remark to a friend of mine that this is probably one of those low-budget monster flicks made in 3D to amplify the overall effect. Guess what? Parasite is a low-budget monster flick made in 3D to amplify the overall effect. You got me. The year is 1992. A scientist played by Robert Gladini has created a deadly strain of parasite for the government. It's supposed to be used for biological warfare. Right? The agents of merchants, the country's governing force, come in and demand the parasite. If it was up to me, I'd give it to him. They're going to use it to, quote, depopulate the overcrowded work camps called suburbs. Sounds great so far, doesn't it? A fight breaks out, and one of the parasites penetrates Gladini's stomach. He destroys all but one of the specimens so he can look for an antidote for the worm-like creature now growing in his body. Pretty morbid. The setting for this motion picture is a western town where gasoline is around $30 a gallon. There's a small amount of action created by one of the merchant agents, played by James Davidson. He chases after Gladini. Both use laser guns to take care of the lowlifes running around. The special effects are effective. Gore and violence have their place in this film, though. All of this is aided by the 3D effect. In between the terror scenes, Parasite is boring and listless. Charles Band's direction is adequate. I'm recommending this picture only for those of you out there who get into the cheap horror flicks. If you don't fit into that category, stay far away from Parasite. I'm Dino Lawley. Yes, we have another film that deals with, one way or another, homosexuals. Partners is a boring, dull film which has Ryan O'Neal as a straight detective and John Hurt as a desk man in the police department. He's gay. Their boss, played by Kenneth McMillan, orders the two to go undercover for a case. They have to pose as a homosexual couple. Their objective is to capture the killer of a male model. And that's about it. Oh, well, I guess I could tell you some more. From here it's downhill, though. Partners just simply exploits stereotypes. Some parts of the film are offensive. It's a stupid picture. Our odd couple go to the hotel where the murder took place, and out comes the manager as a flaming homosexual with the limp wrist and the whole show. He even swoons when O'Neal walks in the door. Give me a break. The jokes are tired, as well as the script and the acting.
You two are going to handle this case together. I want you to live as a gay couple.
Are we on a case or a shopping expedition?
I'm behind with the laundry.
And stop ironing my damn underwear. Guys don't iron other guys' clothes.
Oh, get a load of weepy over here. I must be the only cop in the world that's got a partner that cries.
Knock it off, both of you.
I think he was crying because he read the script to this movie. John Hurt earnestly tries to solve the crime. O'Neal does too, but he gets distracted along the way. For instance, one of the distractions is a key to the murder, photographer Robin Douglas. As it turns out, Hurt is the only one who figures everything out, but no one listens to him because he's weak and infatuated with O'Neal. There are just a handful of scenes that are funny, but mostly Partners is a weak, seldom funny, boring, and dull attempt at trying to be an offbeat comedy. I'm Dino Lawley. When I was watching this movie, I just laughed. The big problem is that it's not supposed to be a comedy. The direction is terrible, the script is horribly written, the acting atrocious, the editing ridiculous.
Get to the point.
All right, The Sword and the Sorcerer is awful. It's bloody and gory, too. The film gets off to an interesting start, though. Cromwell, played by Richard Lynch, and his troops have wreaked havoc in the medieval world. His armies have devastated several kingdoms, all but one, the richest. Ardan hasn't bit the dust yet. King Richard just won't give in to the evil Cromwell. But Cromwell gets help, big help. He turns to the powerful and evil sorcerer Azusa. With the aid of a witch, Cromwell raises Azusa from a 1,000-year sleep. This is about the best scene in the whole picture. It's dramatic and scary. A few minutes later, Azusa makes the witch's heart pop out of her chest. Talk about revolting and disgusting. Azusa does his work and helps Cromwell defeat and kill King Richard. The royal family is captured and Prince Talon sees his mother, brother, and sisters killed by Cromwell. 11 years pass, and then we see Lee Horsley as the older Prince Talon. He returns to Ardan, and the rest of the picture is a combination of idiotic, bloody battles with Talon in pursuit of Cromwell to seek revenge for his family's death.
I beg you.
I'm begging you, this film is stupid. In the production notes from the press kit to the movie, the makers of The Sword and Sorcerer have the audacity to compare this picture with Raiders of the Lost Ark, Clash of the Titans, Conan the Barbarian, and Excalibur. And that's a joke.
Tell me the way.
I'll tell you the way. There ain't no way I'm recommending The Sword and the Sorcerer. No way. I'm Dino Lolly.
In Hollywood, the successful creation of comedy is often the result of a unique blending of talents. Case in point, the collaboration of writer-director Carl Reiner and writer-performer Steve Martin.
Judy, is there anybody with any talent out there? Anybody? Writing talent, specifically.
Judy, send Mark across the street and get us a bag of talent, okay? And bring it in here.
Bring it in. To work with major creative comedy talents is such a wonderful way to live, because what they contribute, they never say, fix it, do something, it's not working. They're saying, how about if? And if you're working with somebody who says, how about if, you've got something to bounce off, something you can say, no, how about this, or yes.
The teaming of veteran comedian Carl Reiner with Steve Martin first took place in 1980 with The Jerk. The film struck box office gold, though Martin had never starred before, and Reiner's movie track record was uneven.
We groove. I found a man where my talent fits in so nicely, it interstices so well.
When we finished The Jerk, I sent Carl a note. I said, Carl, you know that without you, this movie would have been lousy.
The latest product of the Martin and Reiner chemistry is the film Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, an ingenious display of comic inventiveness.
There's cookies on the table.
There are no secret ingredients, really, to their smooth collaboration, just an abundance of respect and trust, especially in the writing process.
I mean, I have to feel like I can stand up and say the dumbest thing, because sometimes it'll spark somebody else. They go, hey, well, what if? You know, and you're really feeding each other, and so you can't have your ego involved at that moment.
Martin and Reiner, an exciting and endearing comedy chemistry.
Come on, Marlowe, no games. I never could fool you, could I?
At first glance, you might recognize this as a scene from the 1946 classic The Big Sleep. But take a closer look. Is it possible for Steve Martin to be acting with Humphrey Bogart?
I'm just beginning to realize it's better to have something to look forward to.
In fact, that's exactly what it is, and it's a Hollywood first. Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid ingeniously utilizes scenes from 18 classic films of the 40s throughout the picture, enabling Martin to interact with some of Hollywood's great legends. Before the script could be written, director Carl Reiner screened nearly 300 films to select the scenes.
Mainly, we were looking to see each scene has one or two things, either to help the story or to get a laugh. And you needed to have an actor by himself or over the shoulder, so you couldn't really identify who the actor in the foreground was. And then they had to have lines that were juicy with import.
No hugs, no kisses. We used to flop into each other's arms, Doris.
Well, don't you think we really ought to get to know each other all over again?
One element critical to creating the illusion was the substitution of ghost actors dressed in original costumes and hairstyles. They stood in for stars like Veronica Lake, Fred McMurray, Lana Turner, and James Cagney. Perhaps the real stars of Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid were the technicians who painstakingly matched the lighting and set designs from the classic films to bring the 40s back to life. That devotion produced one of the most unusual team efforts in film history.
Motion picture is a collaborative effort. You hear it all the time, but this was the most that we've ever. We had to collaborate with people who are dead.
Films of the 40s had an unmistakable look about them that has long since disappeared. In Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, technicians were faced with matching exactly both the look and style of the 18 vintage film clips utilized throughout the picture. Director of Photography Michael Chapman.
What we did was try and make a movie as if we were making it in the 40s. We even had old lights. We did things like not use a zoom lens at all. So if you don't use a zoom lens and you want to push in on something, you've got to do what they do, which is put the camera on a crane and make a move that we now would do with a zoom.
There's some cookies on the table. Have one. Good, aren't they?
The pattern of lighting for each scene obviously had to be determined by the pattern of lighting in that old movie. I mean, some cameramen obviously in the 40s were better than others, just like now. So sometimes I would actually have to match rather bad lighting, and sometimes very good.
In many instances, the original technicians who had made the old films were hired, such as the special effects men who recreated these elaborate fireworks to match a scene filmed in 1949.
A lot of Dead Men is a kind of archaeology, and we happened to find the real guys who had actually done it and brought them back and had them redo the same pinwheels and the same skyrockets and whatever they were. With a lot of money and a lot of equipment at your disposal, in order to make something look as tacky as some of those movies, in fact, were, is rather difficult. I hope we did it.
In the 1970s, Steve Martin burst upon the entertainment scene and quickly established himself as one of America's top stand-up comics.
Because I am a wild and crazy guy.
But I felt like I was acting dumb so that others might laugh. I was doing the dumb things that everyone wanted to do. They wanted to get up and jump up and down. They wanted to put arrows on their heads. They wanted to do something dumb that had no responsibility to anyone.
In concert, Martin drew record crowds. 2 of his comedy albums went platinum, 3 others gold. 2 won Grammys. 7 million sold altogether. His book, Cruel Shoes, was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, and his appearances on TV's Saturday Night Live are now television classics. But stand-up comedy, acting dumb, was not enough for a man of Martin's diverse talents.
It's emotionally straining. It's traveling all the time. You've got the dread of the show over you every night. And audiences got rough, and I wanted to make movies.
After receiving an Oscar nomination for his short subject film, The Absent-Minded Waiter, Martin teamed up with veteran comedy writer Carl Reiner, with whom he wrote his showcase film, The Jerk, which Reiner directed.
Get in that tub with me! Not you!
Their latest movie, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, is filmed in black and white, and again stars Steve Martin under the direction of Carl Reiner.
I'll always come up to him and say, what else is in your head? You got something else in your head? You want to do another take, just for fun?
You don't deserve a puppy.
Wait! Pick that up.
Dead Men is a unique concept, an original script which matches segments of old 1940s movies with recently filmed Steve Martin footage, creating the illusion that Martin is in the same film with legendary stars of the past. A risky venture?
I believe that without risk, there's no comedy. You just have to take a chance.
Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid is a unique and ambitious comedy. It's fashioned after the great mystery and detective films of the 1940s. The story has Steve Martin as a hard-boiled private eye in Los Angeles. He has a nose for adventure and a no-nonsense attitude. The film has a marvelous gimmick going for it. By taking scenes from old vintage mystery movies and splicing them together with Steve Martin footage, the illusion is created that the comedian is playing in scenes with Alan Ladd.
Have one. Good, aren't they?